This episode of the Golf Gambling Podcast and the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. You can win up to 100 times your entry with the Underdog Fantasy Pick'em. Sign up today. Use promo code GOLFSGPN to claim your first pick plus first-time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code GOLFSGPN. And we're also brought to you by Rhythm. Get the best data-driven props and picks from Rhythm. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. Good morning, DGens. Welcome back to the Golf Gambling Podcast. It is bright and early, 6 a.m. on a Monday. Thank you for your patience for me getting this out. It is Steve Shermer here with your Memorial Tournament preview. If you are watching on YouTube, thank you very much. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and go get a cup of coffee because it is quite early on the East Coast and it's probably even earlier on the Pacific Coast if you are really watching. If you are, go back to bed. This will be out in a couple hours. But again, thank you for your patience in getting this out. Pretty hectic off the course week for me in general coming up and last week. And but this preview is my bread and butter. And I have an obligation to you to get these out. I take a lot of pride in these. And that is why I'm here this morning talking about one of the better tournaments on the PGA Tour schedule. It is the Memorial. Obviously, we know this tournament because of Tiger Woods' dominance here, but this has now become one of the cornerstone events on the PGA Tour as far as its elevated status. It is now a week before the U.S. Open. And we'll talk about it in a little bit, but Jack Nicklaus loves to set this golf course up very difficult. He takes a ton of pride in his golf course. He does not want to see it overrun. It is why there have been a couple changes. Well, not a couple, more than a couple changes to this golf course over the last few years to make sure that it doesn't become obsolete like a lot of other golf courses they play in the PGA Tour do. So this is going to be a very stern test of golf. I don't think it's going to be a very relevant test of golf that we're going to see next week at Pinehurst. I think there's going to be a lot of different things asked of guys next week. However, though, if you want to start seeing guys who maybe have the mental fortitude to win a U.S. Open, to have the toughness, have the shot-making ability to win one, this is probably the week for you. But yeah, so after we get done with our first ad break here, we will start. I'll pull up Google Earth. We'll start going over the golf course. We'll go over some of the recent changes. I'll show you specifically what changed on a couple holes, and it'll give you just an overall flavor. If you've never actually bet this tournament or watched this tournament, it'll give you an idea what Muirfield Village is all about. I don't need to show you every single hole. A lot of the holes are basically going to play the same way. You'll get the general gist and vibe of what you want to look for this week based on a handful of holes I want to show you, and we'll do that right after we go to the first commercial break. So we are first brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. The NBA playoffs are here, and our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy, wants to make a lot more interesting. Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports. You can play their pick'em game, and it's as simple as selecting higher or lower on player stats like points, rebounds, assists, and so much more. You can make entries of all basketball or mix and match across your favorite sports, including golf, by the way. You can win up to 100 times your money, and it's a ton of fun. Underdog is available in 30-plus states, including California, Texas, and even Canada. And obviously, you can go and play for the NBA Finals, but I love using Underdog for golf. It is a great tool or a great place to, have some action on golf while you're watching the tournament. You can do higher or lower on birdies and bogeys and fairways. And pretty much any stat projection you can think of, you can put that on your Underdog car. So, as I said, it's available in 30-plus states, including California, Texas, and Canada. And they also just launched Champions, their player versus player format in Florida. So even my colleague who screams about the inability to gamble, despite the fact he has racked up a lot of gambling debts over the years, he has the ability to play Underdog Fantasy in Florida. So sign up today, use promo code GOLFSGPN to claim your special pick and first time deposit up to $250 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code GOLFSGPN. Okay. Here, in all of this chaos right here, is Muirfield Village Golf Club. And shortly after the 1966 Open Championship that Jack Nicklaus won at Muirfield, by then he had started to dabble in golf architecture. And after winning the Open at Muirfield, he wanted to build a premier golf course in his hometown of Columbus, Ohio, and just make a golf course that kind of honors his career. So he bought a piece of tract of land in Dublin, Ohio, which is in, I believe, northeast or northwest Columbus, Ohio. And he started doing work to it, but the golf course itself did not open until 1974. In between then, he also built essentially a community around the golf course. He sold a bunch of houses around the golf course. And in 1974, this golf course officially opened for member play. And just from a high level, we'll go into the details of some of the holes in a little bit. This is one of the best conditioned golf courses on the PGA Tour. Jack takes pride in the conditions of this golf course. He wants to set it up similarly to Augusta National as far as green speeds and agronomy health. And everything here is in perfect condition at this golf course. It is lush with thick Kentucky bluegrass and ryegrass rough, pristine bentgrass fairways and bentgrass greens. He takes a ton of pride in this place. It's also a very difficult and penal golf course, as I'll get to specifically in a couple holes in a little bit. This is a ball buster. There is nowhere to hide on Muirfield Village. If you are not striking the ball well this week, you are going to get quickly ejected. I think if you remember a couple of years ago, Bryson DeChambeau made a mess of hole number 15, which we'll get to in a little bit. If you are just ping-ponging the ball left and right all day, you are in for a long day, and you can put up some huge, huge numbers on a couple of these holes. So, listen, the golf course architect nerds, they generally are, they push back at some of Jack's designs. They tend to be one note. It tends to be just point and shoot golf, target golf at its finest. People who want to criticize PGA National or Valhalla a couple of weeks ago. This is a better version of Valhalla, I would say. It still is target golf at its finest. There's one shot to hit on each hole, and that's really it. There's no creativity or real strategy. It is, okay, this is right in front of you. You have trouble right, trouble left. Green is tucked here. If you miss the green, you're going to get penalized. It's that style of golf. Obviously, Jack Nicklaus favors a fade. A lot of these holes favor fades into some of these greens and some of these tee shots. But overall, though, especially with some of the changes that they made, this is a much better version of Valhalla. And it shows. It's a much tougher test. I don't think a mid-handicapper, particularly, like me, I don't think I would particularly enjoy playing Muirfield Village. I'd probably be like, all right, I'm good once, and I got kicked in the nuts a couple times. I'm good. I'm just going to go eat some or drink some milkshakes up at the clubhouse here. Don't really play this again. But for watching professional golf, this is a great tournament to watch. It's very entertaining. Last year's tournament was entertaining. We'll talk about that in a little bit. It's a great tournament to watch on the PGA Tour. And that's one of the reasons why it's such a special tournament. So let's get to some of the changes, though, that we mentioned. So I mentioned earlier that Jack takes a ton of pride in this golf course, and he wants to make sure that the golf course is still relevant today. Guys are hitting it a long distance, and that has made a lot of golf courses obsolete. And Jack has been very critical of the governing bodies for the last couple of years and screamed from the hilltops that the golf ball is going too far. These guys are using too easy equipment. It's going too straight. And, you started to see a couple of years with Muirfield, though, especially when it played a little soft, the guys are starting to go low here. I think Patrick Cantlay won this tournament in 2019 and like 18 or 19 under. So Jack saw the tsunami tidal wave that was coming with guys just hitting it so far and starting to make his golf course playable too easy. So if Jack decided at that point, if the governing bodies aren't going to do anything about it, well, he's going to do something about it. And he made a lot of dramatic changes to Muirfield Village to make sure it stayed relevant and stayed tough. So here's a high-level summary of what they changed, and then I'll go through some specific holes, and I'll give you a more of a flavor of just how Muirfield Village plays. So every green, first of all, was reconstruction and resurfaced with bent grass. It used to be a bent grass POA mix back in 2019, so that's something to remember too. If you're looking at, if you're somebody who likes to look at putting specific stats at a particular tournament, just know that 2020 and before, these were bent POA, and it did change a little bit how difficult it played, going from bent grass to bent POA. We'll show you that in a little bit. It also he also installed sub air under each green though, so that's for moisture control, temperature control. These greens are just going to be some of the best they play on the PGA Tour this year. Every green was almost recontoured and reshaped as well. The only greens that weren't reshaped were hole numbers 12, 13, 14, 17. Every other one was either they added undulation or added new pin positions, just to make it a little tougher test for these guys on the PGA Tour. They also added a bunch of new tee boxes. It added a little over 100 yards to the scorecard. It now plays at about 7,570 yards, which is one of the longer tracks on the PGA Tour. It is major championship level length. So, and it shows in the scoring. We'll get to a little bit. This is a big boy golf course. Every fairway and greenside bunker was recontoured or added. A lot, and I'll show you a couple bunkers that were added specifically in the fairway to make it a little tougher driving test. And in 2023, there were new tee boxes added to the 7th and 16th hole. They both play much longer than they previous did before that. So the routing is the same. The position of greens and fairways are not. And it just plays a lot tougher now. So let's go first. Let's zoom in a little bit. So let's start with the first hole. Tough opening hole, 470 yards, dog leg right here. So let's go back in time a little bit. So before this, there used to be only 3 bunkers here. It's still a couple in the lane zone here, about 305 to this one, 280 here. But you were seeing guys just blast it completely over the dog leg here, take all these bunkers out of play. The longest here is like Rory and Bryson. So he ended up adding another bunker over here, 330. So now if somebody wants to take it over everything, the fairway bottlenecks here, this is all really thick ryegrass rough too. It's 4 inches. And he eliminated this bunker over here that was 280 because it's just not in play for the pros anymore. So this is a very low-hanging fruit example of how Jack decided to just make it a little tougher driving course and make it more relevant to 2024. The green was also rebuilt here too. It was, it had bunkers on almost all sides here. And then in 2024, he pushed it back a little bit, made it a little smaller, and eliminated a bunch of bunkers here. This is more like a little grassy hill here. It makes it difficult to chip back down to the putting surface. So that's one example of how this hole changed. Hole number 4 here. So we'll go back in time. There was a little greenside bunker behind the green over on 4 here. He ended up getting rid of that, expanding the green back. This used to be the front of the green here. This is now apron. So that's another little change that he made to the golf course here. 5th hole here. This one was one of the more significant changes. And this is a par 5, 536 yards. And, you say, okay, 536, short length, this guy should be able to take advantage of it. This is a ball buster of a par 5. This also utilizes a split fairway. Remember a couple of weeks ago at Valhalla, there was a split fairway. This is a much better version of a split fairway. So let's just go through exactly what the players have to face on the 5th hole here. So dogleg right, you can't see the green from the tee here. This is all trees over this way and thick, ryegrass rough. Only 277 to the middle of the dogleg here before it runs out about 322 with, the creek bisecting the fairway here. So if you're in the middle of the fairway here, great. You have a good look at the green. It's still about, 270, 280 to the green up here. It's really small. but there's a lot of room to bail out in this landing area over here to bail out right. You can get up and down from here. So if you hit the fairway of your tee shot, great. You're perfectly fine here. If you miss the fairway, though, chances are you have tree trouble over on the right here, and you probably have a horrible lie. You can't get to the green if you are somewhere in the rough over on the right or even on the left here. Now, he gives you the option to basically punt, get a wedge, and gouge out to this little fairway over here, over on the left side of the hole, which, is not an easy feat to do. If you have a really horrible lie, it's bisected with a creek between the primary fairway and this little safety fairway, I guess I would call it. And if you don't get a good contact, you can get it in the water. I've seen guys try and splash, basically gouge out of this rough over here, try to get this over to the other fairway. They fail, ends up getting in the water here, or they just don't get there and it's still caught up in the rough over here. But let's say you get over here on this, as a fairway. You then have to hit about, 150, 160 over water. And this green, by the way, was pushed to the left here to bring more water into play on the approach shot. If I go back in time here, you can see that the green was set more to the right here. And, if you're over on this other fairway here, you still have a bunch of room to miss right here in case you really do miss. There's less water to carry over here. Now, the green is set more back to the left. This is all carry over the water. You can't now bail out right here, or else you're really going to, then you have a really, long chip to try and get up and down here. So this is a really tough par 5. At least, it's still played under par in general, but last year, actually in 2023, it played over par in the final round. So, let's say you're sweating a golfer and he only makes par in this hole. That's an okay result. There are definitely cases of guys who struggle to make par, make bogey, definitely blow up on this hole. I remember a couple of years ago, I think I had a position on Bubba Watson. He got off to a good start, and I think he got an 8 on this hole and just made a complete mess of it. So if your guy walks off of this hole with a par, is what it is at that point. And just kind of like the rest of these holes at Muirfield Village, just avoiding car crashes and disaster holes is the key. And this par 5 is a prime example of how there's just disaster on a lot of holes, specifically this one, where, if you commit to a shot, there's only one place really to miss it. And if you miss, you're going to get penalized. The par 5 fifth is basically a good example of that. Let's go to the 7th hole. This is another par 5. So tee box was pushed back about 15. Was pushed back a little bit, and they added a couple fairway bunkers here. Yep, they added another fairway bunker, 295 here. But overall, though, again, generally wide fairways is about 40 yards here. But you miss to the left over here, you're going to either end up probably in this bunker right here or in the rough. You miss over to the right, you're going to end up in a couple bunkers here. You can't get to the green too. And, this is a tough green to hit as well. You can't run the ball up to the green. The fairway runs out here, and there's just an ocean of just ryegrass rough. There's only this small little apron here. If you do miss a green, to still find short grass. And they actually shifted the green. It looks like a little bit to the left here. So, yeah, the green was, it's a little, if you're in the fairway, it's a little straighter shot to the green. Now it's shifted back and to the left a little bit. It's a little more awkward approach shot in. So just another par 5, played under par, but, this is a difficult, one of the more difficult par 5s. It's not an easy par 5 by any standard. If you do miss, getting a birdie, getting up and down can be pretty tricky here. Let's go over to the 15th, though. Let's skip a bunch of holes. This is the hole that got the most changes. So let's go back in time here. So before, players would have to hit uphill to this little fairway here. This is pretty similar to, I think, what was the hole? 12 at Valhalla, where, the fairway just runs out here. It's a small silver fairway. This is also uphill as well. And then you have a long approach shot into a small green here, about, only 270, 280 away. And there were no fairway bunkers, though. It's all just either you just hit in the rough or you hit the fairway. There's also the creek over here. This is where Bryson made a mess of things. Hit in the creek here, penalty shot, hit it back over, out of bounds over here. This is where he made a 10. So Jack, though, made a lot of changes to this hole. First of all, he ended up flattening out the fairway here. And then he eliminated, I think, 10 to 15 feet of elevation, and he added 4 new fairway bunkers over on the right here. Starts at 289 to get to this first bunker, 307 to get these twin bunkers here, 320 over here. It's a wide fairway, but he brought the edge of the fairway here a little closer to the creek. So if it's playing really firm, if guys are aiming this way, you bring the creek a little more into play over on the right here. He also brought more of the creek in play towards the green here. If you in the last picture I showed, just kind of just runs underground here into a drainage. So if you do miss right, you're not going to land in the water. Now he connected the two to where if you hit a really bad approach shot into the green, miss right, it's going to land in the water here. And again, you got water in front. Again, just par 5, not all that long, but this is a really difficult hole that guys can really make a mess of. So 16, this is going to be the last one I show you. So this is a hole that guys really complained about over the years. So the tee box up until last year was over here. And it just, let me actually swing this around here. So from this angle over here, you just don't have a lot to work with. It's a small green. If it's playing really firm, you can't hold the green. The ball is going to land, it's going to bounce off here. And guys just really complained a lot about this hole. Obviously, you got water in front here. You got bunkers to the right. It kind of looks a little bit like the 16th at Augusta National, where pond to the left, you got to hit a draw into the green here. So what Jack Nicklaus did this year, though, was he ended up shifting the tee box about 25 yards to the right here. Now guys have a little better angle into the green. They have it's just a better visually for it. If it's playing pretty firm, they can now bounce the ball up to the green and have a better chance of holding it. So that's the only change this year that they made to the golf course. But it's still a tough hole. 220 yards, par 3, water left, nowhere to miss, small greens, target golf. So those are just some, just a handful of holes that I showed you. Hopefully you got a sense of just how penal the golf course can be if you are missing and if you are erratic. I can't stress enough that if you have really bad ball striking, you're not going to find it here. You're not going to luck box your way into this thing. Typically these leaderboards, it's not necessarily I guess one of the things that's good about this golf course too is even though it's long, it's beefy, it's not one where the bombers just automatically have an advantage. Obviously length helps, but we'll get to the predictive skill set chart in a little bit. Shorter hitters can have just as good success here too, because they don't get in trouble. Ball's usually staying on line. They're pretty good at getting up and down because there are low green regulation rates here. And they can still be relevant here despite the fact it's 7,500 yards. But they have to keep the ball in front of them. That's basically the key this week. Keep the ball in front of you. Avoid the car crashes. Avoid the big misses. Grind out pars. Get your birdies when you can. And that's going to be the name of the game this week. So what exactly do you have to look for as well as far as some of these guys? We will talk about some of the things of how this tournament plays and some of the things to look out for after we take another ad break. And then we'll get back to talking about this golf course and what you need to focus on this week. So we're also brought to you by Rhythm. If you plan on watching the Memorial this weekend, then you need to download Rhythm. Rhythm's golf features make it easier than ever to find the best betting opportunities for the Memorial by letting users create custom betting models and instantly see Bet recommendations for outright winners, top 5, top 10, and top 20 finishers. Rhythm presents these bet recommendations in a menu-like format, making it easy to see where your models agree and helping you to feel confident in your betting decisions. Rhythm also features an AI caddy, which gives bettors a chance to see every single golfer in the field's simulated performance thanks to Rhythm's powerful AI algorithm. And you can use this to find huge plus money betting opportunities throughout every tournament. Rhythm is the ultimate golf betting and DFS companion. Download now and start a free 7-day trial and bet smarter on the Memorial. So claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. And we're also brought to you by Naira. If you want to bet on the Belmont Stakes, excuse me, it's Saratoga this weekend, go to Naira Bets. Join now to claim your $25 free bet and $200 deposit bonus just in time for the Belmont Stakes at nairabets.com/SGPN25. Do you need extra boost as well? Bet the Penn Mile with a bonus. Earn $10 win to lose when you bet at least $100 on Penn National on Friday. Visit nairabets.com to opt in, and that's not all. Get $10 win or lose when you opt in and bet at least $100 on Monmouth Park on Saturday. And on Sunday is your chance to win big at Monmouth Park. Grab a share of $2,500 when you hit the last two trifectas. Just opt in at nairabets.com and get ready to cash in on the excitement. The winning streak continues. Score another $20 win or lose, and you bet at least $100 at Assiniboia Downs on Monday. And remember to get your $25 free bet and $200 deposit bonus for the Belmont Stakes. Go to nairabets.com/SGPN25. Okay. Let's get back to talking about the Memorial. Let's go first to the GCSAA. Love consulting this. It just gives you just a general idea, agronomy-wise, what these guys are really in for this week. So, like I mentioned, Jack Nicklaus Design opened in 1974. Winner went a renovation in 2020, immediately after John Rahm beat Ryan Palmer on Sunday. He ran away from it. But that 2020 Memorial, I remember that it was during COVID. It was back-to-back. They played the work day before the Memorial. That was like a diet Memorial, the Colin Morikawa one. And then Jack Nicklaus just let the golf course go completely to hell the following week. It was so tough, that Memorial tournament, because Jack just did not care about the conditioning, because as soon as the final putt drop, actually, I think even on the telecast, they were completing holes, and I think they were showing on the front nine just them bulldozing greens just in tournament. Like, Jack wanted you to know in the tournament that this golf course was undergoing a huge renovation, and he wanted it shown on TV. Like, literally during the tournament, they were starting ripping this golf course up. But then in 2020 or in 2021, that was when we first saw the new Murrayville Village, where I showed you some of the changes a little while ago. Par 72, 7,569 yards. Like I mentioned earlier, they pushed back a couple tee boxes, moved some greens. They added a little over 100 yards to the scorecard here. This is a big boy golf course. Obviously, it shows with the average scoring. Average green size, 5,000 square feet. This is one of the smaller greens that they play on the PGA Tour. So just think about that. You have a long golf course. You have a golf course that if you are in the thick rough, you aren't getting probably to the green. You probably got to hack out. Even if you are in the fairway, these are really small targets to hit. And considering their significantly undulating nature to these greens, these are extremely small greens to hit, at least as far as where you need to hit it. So there is a very fine line between a really good approach shot and a really bad one. And that's one of the, I think, the better things about watching professional golf at the Memorial is these guys are tested, even from the fairway. They have to show precision on the shot, or else they're going to get punished. Agronomy-wise, though, so fairways and collars and approaches are all bent grass. The rough is a mix of Kentucky bluegrass, ryegrass, and fescue rough, 4 inches in length. The GCSA also may mention that the course has seen a lot more rain this season. It's created probably a couple challenges as far as maybe keeping, some of the conditioning good. But you know what? Bent grass, Kentucky bluegrass rough loves a lot of rain. And it loves cooler temperatures. It hasn't been all that hot up here either. So this is going to be really thick rough. You kind of saw it last week at Hamilton, where if you were missing in the rough, you know, it was hard to hit some of these greens, especially with how, they're on, elevated greens, couldn't bounce the ball up. Showed you a couple holes where either there's water in front or there's a huge, the fairway runs out and you can't bounce the ball to the green. Similar situation this week. If you are in the rough off the tee and you are in a hole where, you can't bounce the ball up to the green, you're probably just gouging out with a wedge and you've got probably maybe 50 yards for your third. Bent grass greens as well. These are really fast. It doesn't show the stimp meter on here, but these run about, at least 12 and a half. Probably by the time the tournament rolls, it's going to be about 13 plus. These are really fast greens, really undulating greens. But this is an important change because a couple of years ago, before the renovation, these were bent POA greens. These are now all bent grass greens. So that'll change a little bit of what you're looking for. They roll generally similar, but the POA does add some more difficulty towards as far as how true these greens roll. Now that they're all bent grass, though, these greens roll really easy, or not easy, but they roll really nice. You can roll in a lot more putts and be confident with the lines that you're reading now that they're bent grass as opposed to bent POA. And it actually shows in the data that we'll talk about in a little bit. So, all right, let's talk about the last couple of years at the Memorial. So last year, great tournament. This was mega firm. Guys were having a ton of trouble holding greens, holding fairways. Like if you did not hit it just straight off the tee, you probably were not holding the fairway. It was probably going to bound into the rough here. Viktor Hovland, big breakout win. Up until this point last year, he had been winning Mayakoba or the Hero World Challenge, or, he won, I forget, it was either the Dubai Desert Classic or the Abu Dhabi over the DP World Tour, which, to me, a golf nerd, that's a pretty big win. But to everybody else, though, it was, okay, when is Viktor going to actually win a big boy golf course and actually live up to the talent that, we all know him to have? And this was the big breakout win. McCarthy gagged it on the 18th hole. He had a one-shot lead. All he had to do was par the 18th, which, listen, it's the 18th is a very difficult hole. Not an easy feat to do, but ends up hitting it into the rough, almost into the creek, actually. Has a terrible lie, has to gouge out with a wedge, has like 80 yards for his third, only gets it about 20 feet. I think the putt burned the lip there, ends up going to a playoff. Hovland ends up two putting from long range to steal the win. Very popular outright that week. I had Hovland on the outright that week. A lot of people had Hovland. It was a big community win for everybody. One of the last, I think, community wins between then and now. I think the last one probably was maybe Akshay a couple weeks ago. Before that, maybe Jake Knapp. Before that, maybe Ricky at Rocket Mortgage. This was a big community win, though. For everybody. Everybody was happy. The Hovland one. This was also the week too that Scotty Scheffler, his putting woes, it finally magnified it a little bit. Scotty led the field. Actually, let me just show you right now. Normally I show you this page later, but so Scotty gained over 20 strokes tee to green during the tournament. Gained almost 3 with approach, over a shot per round off the tee, over a shot around the green. He lost over 8 strokes. He lost like almost 9 strokes putting on the week, and he lost by 1. Like, this was the absurdity of Scotty ball striking. And now we see what happened this year where this no longer happens, losing 9 strokes putting. He's not gaining 20 strokes tee to green, but he's gaining what, 12, 13? Why he wins a lot. That's why he finished top 5 a lot. This is why Scotty Scheffler has been a top 10, top 5 machine over the last year, because you have these level of ball striking, and even with terrible putting, he just kills it. So that was last year's tournament. This also was, I think Morikawa was, 3 back heading to the final round. What did he do? Oh, he had a back injury. The back injury flared up at the driving range, and he ended up withdrawing, I think, like 10 minutes before his tee time, which is kind of a shock to everybody. So, the rest of the top 10, though, Siwoo Kim fourth, Jordan Spieth somehow fifth. I think he was kind of clanking all over the place at that point. Rory was seventh. Ricky continued good play. T9 that week, ends up winning a couple of weeks later. 2022, this was Billy Horschel. Oh, I don't want. Well, we'll stay on this page. Billy Horschel wins a 13 under. This was mostly thanks to a really good Saturday where I think he ended up. Well, now I'll go back to that past page because it'll show you how much he was up by. Horschel was up 5 heading to the final round. He, shot a Saturday 65, gained 7 strokes in the field that week. But Horschel, listen, not a bomber, but he's a little bit of an inconsistent ball striker, but he was displaying pretty good form at that point. He's keeps the ball relatively in front of him, and he's a good putter. So this is an example of a guy who doesn't have to be this big bad driver to win. Horschel, you're never going to think of him as a great driver. Ends up winning by 4 over Aaron Wise. Unfortunately, Aaron Wise basically no longer with us. He's balanced some off the course stuff, hasn't been able to get back. Patrick Cantlay, who's been great. Immerfield T3, Joaquin Niemann. Oh man, I miss you. T3 as well. Denny T5, Saad Tagala T5, Will Zalatoris T5, Max Homa T5, Daniel Berger T5, John Rahm T10 last year. So, kind of a mix though. You got some, really good drivers and Will Zalatoris and Niemann and Cantlay and Rahm. And you got guys who, tend to be a little more accurate, like Billy Horschel and Berger and McCarthy. You got some absolute fire hoses like Cam Smith and Sahith Theegala, who are just really good around the green, though. So a pretty good eclectic mix of guys in this leaderboard. It's not bomber heavy. It's not, just dominated by, one type of guy. There's a lot of different types of golfers that can play very well at this tournament. And then 2021 here. This is the tournament that my co-host loves to just scream about as the illegitimate win for Patrick Cantlay. This was where John Rahm was leading by 6 heading into the final round there over Cantlay and Morikawa. And then shortly after the round, he was told that he had a positive COVID test. He had to withdraw, and that was absolute chaos that evening and before the round there. You had Rahm, who was going to win the tournament by a landslide. He was going to win his second straight Memorial, gets taken off the golf course. And then it was a shootout between Scotty and Morikawa and Cantlay on Sunday. It was a very entertaining tournament. Cantlay ends up winning in a playoff. I think what people forget, or well, I don't forget because I had Morikawa that week. Morikawa on, I think 12. Yeah, 12. So he hit long on 12. And he ended up whiffing his chip shot. Ends up sliding the club face right below the ball there. Ends up getting him down, but he ends up bogeying there. It doesn't go to a playoff then if he doesn't do that. So that little silly mistake cost him getting the Memorial that year. But you can see 13 under was the winning score in 2021. Average score a stroke over par. 2022, a little over stroke over par. In the Memorial, 13 under again was the winning score. The cut line was 2 over that week. You can see a lot of guys over par to end the tournament. T40 would have been +2 on the year if you bet those props. And then last year, 7 under, mostly because of the really firm conditions. Cut line was 3 over at that point. You had poor Tom Hoge finishing 17 over on the week. Sahith, who finished T5 the year before, was 9 over. That's kind of the thing about this tournament too. Like course history. Look, I mean, we all think about Tiger Woods dominating this place. There's a couple guys who just show up here every single year and do well, but you have an example of Saad Tagala, who finished T5 in 2021 and finished 9 over the following year. Just if you don't have it, if you just show up with one of your bad days, you're going to put up a really bad score. And that's a prime example of it. Bryson DeChambeau is another example of that too. He ends up winning in 2019 and just comes back here in 2021 and made a mess of the 15th, like we all remember him doing, carding the 10 there. So Let's go to the course table here. So it's all per Data Golf. So, you know, difficult tee to green golf course. 33rd out of 85 golf courses on the PGA Tour off the tee. But the last post renovation, though, has gotten a lot tougher. It played 9th toughest off the tee in 2021, 8th toughest 2022, 15th toughest last year too. And you can probably attribute a lot of that to Jack Nicklaus recontouring some fairway lines, adding some fairway bunkers, lengthening it more to where, even though some of the fairways can be a little generous, if you do miss, it's going to be punishing. And it's not as easy of a tee shot as far as maybe taking trouble out of play as it used to be. And, I've said a bunch of times today or this morning about the penal nature of it. Well, the penalty for missing a fairway at Miracle Village is significantly high. It's annually one of the top 5 golf courses to miss a fairway as far as the difference between your score on the hole versus if you hit the fairway. And it's almost a half a shot difference. If you miss a fairway versus if you hit the fairway, you're probably going to get it's probably a half a stroke penalty. And obviously you got the really thick rough. Oftentimes you can't get to the green. You have water lurking off the fairway as well. If you're in the rough there and twist the club face, even if you can try and get to the green, there's a lot of water around the green. You can, ends up missing in there. So name of the game is you have to hit fairways this week. And if you don't, unlike a lot of golf courses, there is a significant penalty for missing, especially in the rough here. It's a 0.44 shot difference if you are in the rough versus in the fairway as far as your expected for holding the golf course. That is 3rd of all golf courses. That includes major venues too. And actually, the only one's tougher is LECC, which is funny. Everybody craps on that one. And Sherwood, actually another Jack Nicklaus design where, the difference between your score hitting the fairway and not is pretty steep. So, but yeah, you definitely want to keep it out of the rough this week. And there's a high degree of penalty strokes you can accumulate if you do miss a fairway as well. 18th most since 2015. It hasn't been as much the last couple of years, but still, a lot of guys, if you're spraying it, you can accumulate the penalty strokes. Approach shots. So 10th most difficult overall on the PGA Tour, but you can see ever since 2020 where it was really firm, Jack let it go to hell. And in the last 3 years, post renovation, it has been one of the top 5 most difficult places to hit approach shots. And even before that, it was one of the more, it was above average difficulty. But you have, even if you're in the fairway, you have trouble lurking around every green as far as either thick rough or, greenside bunkers that are well placed to where, based on the contours of the green, if you're getting out of it, chances are it's going to be very hard to get the ball close to the pin because of how fast they're rolling. Maybe you're short-sided. There's a lot of water around the greens too. And these are significantly undulated greens that are very small, only about 5,000 square feet in average square area. These are tiny targets. So the degree of difficulty of getting your shot really close to the pin at Miracle Village is quite high. So you have to have total control with your irons at this golf course coming in to be successful at Murfield Village. As far as the average green and regulation rate, it is. So last year, it was only 50.5%, one of the lowest clips on the PGA Tour. Actually, the lowest of every golf course on the PGA Tour last year. Only 50% of the greens in regulation hit is because it was very firm. A lot of guys are missing fairways more than usual at Murfield Village. So if you were hitting out of the rough, you couldn't hold the green. So you weren't getting there. And really difficult approach shots from under 150 and over 150. It is the 4th most difficult from approach shots under 150. Toughest last year of approach shots over 150. You can see just every single year, it's top 5 most difficult. Small targets, you have to show real precision with your approach shots. It's very difficult out there. Around the green as well, very difficult to get up and down, especially from the rough here. Top 5 annually most difficult golf course to try and get up and down from off the green from the rough. Ever since the renovation as well, it's been very difficult to get up and down from the bunkers too. And again, the fast undulating nature of these greens, with the rough being so thick, you're just guessing at that point how good or how poorly it's going to come out. So it's hard to really gauge and try and get it really close to the pin. Same thing coming out of a bunker as well. These bunkers are very well placed to where if you are in them, it's very difficult to try and get up and down as well. Putting, though, this is the one area that post renovation seems like it's gotten a lot easier. So, annually, it's about middle of the road as far as difficulty, as far as like putting on it. The last 3 years, though, 32nd out of 40 as far as degree of difficulty putting at Muirfield Village, 26 out of 30 in 2022, 30th out of 45 in 2023. And just from every single range too, it's relatively easy from under 5 feet, 5 to 15 feet. It seems like it's gotten a lot easier to putt on. Over 15 feet, seems like it's a little easier to lag putt on. Other than last year, probably just because of just how difficult and firm they were and how fast they got. I think that's an agronomy change. I think that's how you want to attribute that. As I mentioned before, these were bent Poa greens before the renovation. And, even though they roll similarly, anytime you get a little bit of Poa in the greens, and it just makes it a lot more inconsistent. And sometimes you just can't rely on the line that you read. Sometimes a little luck can get involved. But ever since they moved to bent grass, these greens roll really true. If you have a good line and confident with the speed and how much the ball is going to break, it's going to probably putt how you expect it to. So the degree, it seems like guys are holding more putts at Muirfield Village than they did before. And I think that's probably an agronomy change for that one. So, all right. So those are degrees, so that's the statistically how Muirfield Village plays. As you can see, and I showed you the Google map, I'm hammering home this morning, tough tee green golf course. And that's reflected in your predictive skill set chart too, as far as the types of guys you want to target this week. So as I may mention earlier, very low correlation between guys who hit it long and hit it short and find success here. I went through some of the leaderboard. You got some guys who are really good drivers who can do really well at Muirfield Village if they just are killing it and, hit a bunch of fairways more than they typically would. A bomber can do very well, obviously, here. A shorter hitter, too, though, can do very well because it really isn't about just length. If you're spraying it everywhere, you're going to get punished. So that is why length is not a prerequisite this week towards success at Muirfield Village. You can feel confident going to a shorter hitter if they demonstrate a bunch of other predictive skill sets that they're good at and feel pretty good that they can do pretty well at Muirfield Village. High correlation, though, of guys who tend to find a lot of fairways that do very well at Muirfield Village for obvious reasons. It is one of the most difficult golf courses that, as far as the difference between your score on a hole, if you hit the fairway versus miss a fairway, it's one of the more extreme penalties. So as such, usually a higher correlation of guys who tend to find more fairways do pretty well at Muirfield Village. Same thing with better iron players do pretty well at Muirfield Village. Again, one of the more difficult golf courses to hit approach shots to. Really small targets. Better iron players tend to do better in those conditions. Shocking. I'm breaking a lot of news this morning. I'm sorry if that's really, hot take on this one. But yes, better iron players in tougher iron conditions tend to do better. Same thing with better scramblers tend to do a little better because of really difficult scrambling conditions. This is actually, I actually like tournaments like this, handicapping it, because all these predictive skill sets are matching up to the difficulty of the golf course. Sometimes I'll look at one of these skill set charts and it'll suggest that, just something completely, how the golf course plays is completely opposite towards what the predictive charts are. And it just says okay, but that doesn't really jive. You're saying that, it's really easy around the green conditions, but better scramblers do really well here. And you try to marry the two. But here, though, you have the types of guys who do well here. it's matches exactly what the golf course is asking you. You have to hit fairways here. Ergo, more guys who tend to hit more fairways generally do better here. Really tough approach shots. You have a lot of precision. It's really small targets. Therefore, better iron players generally do better at Muirfield Village. Really tough around the green conditions. Hard to get up and down. It really takes a lot of precision and care and a lot of spin control to make sure that you can get the ball close to the green to save par or get birdie when you can. Better scramblers do pretty well here. And then putting, there actually is a little bit of a lower correlation between guys who do well here and guys who don't. I don't know how that really has changed since the agronomy change, but hey, listen, Scotty Scheffler finished second last year, losing 8 strokes putting. Maybe that's just all Scotty right here with that. As far as the comp courses, the Valspar, Innisbrook tends to have similar leaderboards and like guys who would do well there versus here. Concession, another Jack Nicklaus golf course that was a one and done. I wish they would bring that tournament back. It's got a lot of similar qualities that Muirfield Village does, as far as like, I don't think I would want to play as a mid handicapper, but watching professional golf was damn entertaining. Similar types of leaderboards there. Obviously Colin Morikawa does really well. Muirfield Village, Hovland also does well. I think those guys were 1-2 at concession that year. TPC Twin Cities, a very penal golf course if you miss a fairway because a lot of water. East Lake, Sedgefield, Sawgrass, TC River Highlands, Sea Island. So, even though this is a big boy 7,500-yard golf course, it's a lot of your ball striking guys who, where length isn't a huge advantage. Those types of guys tend to do better at here. So if you want to look at some comp courses, Southwind's another one. You wouldn't think of these golf courses maybe as matching a Muirfield Village, but those types of players do pretty well. So I would say probably those types of golf courses are ones to maybe look for comp courses. If you have a guy maybe only 1 or 2 tournaments here, you want a little bigger sample size. And then lastly, let's go to a little more in detail as far as, again, like how guys actually gain strokes. And again, this is another tournament where, like I just mentioned, the predictive skill set chart is matching what the golf course is telling you. And it shows up with how you actually are gaining strokes at this tournament. So let's leave off the tee for a little bit because this actually was an outlier based on how it usually plays. But bigger correlation to the better you hit it with your irons, the more you're able to separate yourself versus the average PGA Tour golf course by an extreme margin. In fact, iron play is paramount this week. You have to look at iron play. Obviously you're looking at iron play every single week, but like it is a huge correlation, much bigger to the average PGA Tour golf course, and it is by far like the best way to separate yourself. Same thing around the green play. A little easier to separate yourself around how you do around the green versus the average PGA Tour golf course. Putting is significantly de-emphasized as far as it's just harder to separate yourself through putting. You're not going to putt your way to a Muirfield to a win in Muirfield Village. Off the tee, though, this is one I want to talk about and focus on. So, last year, the better you drove it, the better you did overall on the leaderboard, which, probably wouldn't surprise you based on how penal the golf course is. Obviously, the more fairways you hit in tournament, the better you did overall. Distance actually had a little more contributing factor towards how you did off the tee than most years. But this is actually counter to what it was the last couple of years. So in 2022, it was actually de-emphasized that year. And same thing actually in 2021 as well, to where, it was actually significantly de-emphasized in 2021 as far as just, off the tee, you weren't able to really separate yourself as much as you would probably think. I think the firm conditions last year to where it was so difficult to hold fairways probably has something to do with that. And if we get similar conditions again this year, where it's really firm, maybe we see a little bit more emphasis on off the tee play. But prior years, though, it was de-emphasized compared to other PGA Tour venues. So that's something to maybe look at. But overall, though, you can have just a lot of success if you're just focusing on guys who are hitting their irons extremely well coming in, are generally pretty good scramblers and aren't complete fire hoses off the tee and don't get a lot of trouble, that's a pretty good recipe of just like, okay, I'm just going to target those types of guys and make that your player pool. That's a pretty successful recipe for this week for the Memorial. And then the approach distribution chart. So I want to show you just how the changes have, how things have been different after renovation. So before the renovation, higher percentage of shots from under 175 throughout most of the proximity buckets, higher from 150, 175, higher from 125, 150. Now, though, there has been a shift in length. Things have been pushed down a little more. Now it's a little higher from 200 to 225. It's still higher from 175 to 200, but guys are hitting longer approach shots because it's now a longer golf course. So keep that in mind when you're looking at proximity buckets. It's pretty evenly spread out, though. Even though there's less shots from 125 to 150, 150 to 75 than PGA Tour golf course, you're all hitting about the same amount of shots in that range from between 150 and 200. There was a fair amount from 200 to 225. This is a proper true test of you got to hit a lot of different types of approach shots into very small targets. And that's the name of the game this week. So, all right. Thank you again for watching. Hope you enjoyed it this early morning. I have to go get ready for work and get my kids up. So, thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the Golf Gambling Podcast on Spotify and Apple. Also subscribe to us on YouTube. We give you, free information every single week. And also follow us on Twitter and TikTok. We put out great content there too. Producer Cam's handling Twitter because I'm not on Twitter. He handles all that. So, Joanne, thank you very much for the compliment. I appreciate that. Thank you for watching. And with that, good luck this week with the Murrayfield Village. We will have Brian Kirshner on for our best bets tomorrow night. Always entertaining to have on, so stick around for that. And yeah, have fun looking down the odds board, and we'll talk to you tomorrow night.